So I had a phone call today saying that I have got an appointment in about 5 weeks' time for an ADHD assessment. So the question is, do I have ADHD? Why do I think I've got ADHD? What is going on? How long has it taken to get to this point? What's ADHD in women all about? Why is that different to, how we generally perceive it in kind of very busy little boys? And why are so many women undiagnosed? And now why does there seem to be an influx of women being diagnosed lately? Well, I think the best thing to do to explain all of this is to jump back to nearly a year ago, who will fill you in. So I went to the doctor's this morning and sat down, and he said, why are you here? What can I help you with? And I honestly thought he already knew I was there because I had said when booking my appointment, but I had to ask him for a referral for an ADHD assessment. So it started a good while ago when, probably a year or two ago, when I did an Instagram live with Katie from What Katie Said, where she discussed having been diagnosed. She's almost exactly the same age as me, probably the same school year at school. And she was very recently diagnosed at this point with, I can't remember if it's ADD or ADHD. One's with hyperactivity, one's without. I think it's just ADD. Anyway, she reeled off this whole load of lists of symptoms that she had that seem all very unrelated, but that led her to seek an assessment, and she then got a diagnosis. Almost everything she said, I went, oh my goodness, I do that, or oh my goodness, I used to do that until I put this strategy in place. Oh my goodness, I used to do that until I put this strategy in place. And that was a couple of years ago, and I've done almost nothing about it. But if you have seen some of my other recent vlogs, I have started having some therapy sessions for some, let's just say, various reasons, to kind of take care of and declutter, if you will, my mental health. And I thought, you know what? While I am having a good old sort out of the insides of my brain, I've always wondered since this conversation, is this something that is a challenge of mine or not? Is it just mum life? Do you know what I mean? Is it just I'm forgetful and I'm overwhelmed and I find like it hard to wind down and calm down and detangle my thoughts because mum life, because we're all busy, and it could easily just be that? Or is there something else there? And there is neurodiversity in my family, as you know, my children have autism. So I kind of feel like by understanding, yes, this is a challenge of mine, or no, it's not, I will understand myself better and therefore know which strategies to put in place. And just, I think when you know what you're dealing with, it's like doing any personality quiz, isn't it? Or knowing if you're like a better learner by reading or by listening or by watching, and then being able to kind of play to your strengths. So I did it. I went, I asked him. I thought I was ready for like a big load of quizzing questions then, which I felt a bit nervous about. And he just went, well, I'm going to give you this questionnaire, fill it out. It was literally a tick box. Fill it out and then bring it back. And if it's kind of indicates you need an assessment, I will refer you for an assessment. So I said, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this right now so I don't forget, because it's kind of one of those things that I think this is why I hate procrastinating things, because I know I'm just so likely to let them slip off my radar, and I like to do things straight away so that doesn't happen. And that's a little bit of a coping strategy. So I literally sat in the waiting room, filled it all out. I will put it on screen actually. I resonated with, yes, I do this often, to almost everything on there. So I think that probably indicates there is enough evidence to do an assessment. Obviously that in itself is nothing. It's just an indicator. Yes, this person needs an assessment or not. So I just wonder if, for the sake of my mental health and for the sake of just understanding myself better, that is a sensible thing to do. And also, if when my children are older, they have questions about neurodiversity or whatever, and why I got them assessed, whatever it might be, I can say, well, I had queries as to whether I had ADD, ADHD, I got assessed for these reasons, and just, I think normalising it for my children is probably important. But yeah, the biggest one is just understanding why I do the things I do sometimes. Like, I cannot switch my brain off to do yoga. And I find it such a challenge when a thought comes into my head when I'm working, not to just stop doing what I'm doing. there you go. See, there's an alarm going off to go and get my children, so I'm not distracted by what I'm doing. I remember to go and get my children. But I find it so difficult not to get distracted by what I'm doing by another idea that comes into my head. It takes everything in my being to not just be like, oh, I need to go and do this now. Because that's what I really instinctively want to do. I really struggle with attention to detail, like proofreading is like, oh, I really struggle with that. Yes, I can go, when I go back to something weeks or months later, I can see mistakes that they're glaring at me. But proofreading my own work, I find a real challenge. Proofreading my own edits, I find a real challenge. That's why with the bigger vlogs, the ones like the more important vlogs, like trips and things, I will watch them with the children on the big TV. I watch them back because just looking at the computer, I can't even see the mistakes. Just can't even do it. So there are lots of things, and I think later in this video I will go through my list of kind of specific challenges. But as you know, the alarm just went off. I need to go and get my children, and I need to not forget to do that. Today is what I'm assuming an ADHD appointment. I don't know anything about what's going to be in this appointment. In fact, I think on the letter it just said psychiatry department. And since I can't think of what else I've got going on health-wise that I could have been referred to, I'm assuming it's an ADHD appointment. The only information I do have isn't terribly positive, and that someone else said that their first ADHD appointment, they came out crying because it was brutal. So I don't really know what to expect from this. I'm feeling a little nervous, I guess, for that reason. I'm just going to go and do it, and I'll see you afterwards to report back. Back in the car, kind of warm now. That kind of wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm not sure what I thought it was going to be. It was basically a psych evaluation. So what she said was it was to check if the people on the pathway, although I used the word pathway like they use the autism pathway. She didn't like that. She was like, no, it's just traits. So she didn't like the term pathway. Anyway, people on the pathway, people in the system to be assessed for ADHD, to pick up to see if they need any other psychiatric care, if they have any other psychiatric factors at play, severe anxiety. My car is just locking me in. What's going on here? There we go. I've unlocked it so the alarm doesn't go off. So basically just looking for any history of mental illness, depression, just anything that could be at play. She asked in depth about family history, drug use, of which I don't have any, but there were a lot of very detailed questions. She was saying this isn't like related to ADHD, it's just your general mental health. So I answered as honestly as I could, and she said everything seemed fine. So the next step is to wait on a really, really long waiting list. Apparently it's going to be over a year for the actual assessment, which I think is in a very similar format where I just sit and answer questions. She said I could pay to go privately, and that would speed it up, obviously. But if I'm happy to wait, then there's a waiting list. Car, why you keep logging me in? She said it all depends, like whether it's medication I'm after or just understanding of myself. I think for me, I don't know, because I'm open to listen to the experts, but I think I just want to be able to understand my mind. For years and years and years, I have struggled with the juggle and organisation and things, and as a teenager I really wasn't organised, and I did all right in school, but I was very disorganised. And then as a young adult, stuff I just put down to having a lot on my plate. But I don't know, if it is ADHD, I think having that understanding might allow myself to be kinder to myself. And I definitely like the idea of, if I need strategies for a certain thing, to use those strategies. It just makes sense, and being able to understand my own mind. So I'll chat it over with my husband, but I don't think I'll pay to go privately. Why does my car keep looking me in? I don't think I'm going to pay to go privately. I think I'll just wait, because it is quite a lot of money. I guess we'll wait and see. So I'll report back when I hear some more. So that was last year, and early this week I realised, hey, that was quite a long time ago. I should probably chase it and follow it up, because if you are familiar with my channel, my journey, my children all have autism, and for each one of them, in order to get them assessed, there was a lot of pushing and nagging, and I just thought, well, if it was one of the children, I'd make a phone call. So I'll make a phone call. Got through to someone on the phone who said that it was going to be another 2 or 3 years from now. Bear in mind, when I originally had a letter, they said it was going to be, 10 to 12 weeks for the first appointment, which I had. That was the psych evaluation. And then they said it was probably going to be a year for the second appointment being the assessment. So now, best part of a year on, it's going to be at least another 2 to 3 years. I said, well, that's terrible. What's going on? She said, do you want the number of the complaints department? Okay. So I phoned, just left an answer phone message. They phoned me back later that day. So when they asked me what a complaint was, I just said that originally I was told a year. Now it was going to be 2 to 3 years from now. It just seems like insanity. It's all felt very reminiscent of when I was having to fight to get my children assessed. Obviously that was autism, not ADHD, but it's all like battling. So they said, no problem, leave it with me. And I just had a phone call to say they've scheduled an appointment for me in 5 weeks' time. Just like that. So, first of all, the moral of the story is squeaky wheel gets oiled. Isn't that terrible? That nothing will get done. Then you get offered a number for a complaints department and suddenly, woo, things happen. Second moral of the story is, if you would do it for your children, you should probably do it for yourself. But anyway, it looks like in 5 weeks' time I'm going to be having an ADHD assessment. So what I wanted to talk to you about now, this is a very impromptu video. I wasn't planning on filming now. I actually am not filming where I would normally film because I'm in the process of attempting to screen record that interview that I did with Katie from What Katie Said from Instagram, and I'm having to do that in a very bizarre way where I'm like trying to record it off my laptop but using the sound of the room. So I've got that playing upstairs and recording to itself in a screen recording. I'm hoping to be able to share that interview in its entirety because that's initially what sparked my I do that, that kind of, it's what initially made me think, all of this sounds really familiar. I think I'm just going to, if I can manage to post that, the sound quality on it's not going to be amazing, but I think I'm going to post that to YouTube in its entirety just because I felt that What Katie Said that's a channel name, isn't it? What Katie said to me that day really had a massive impact in me. I don't know, just thinking, so maybe not everyone struggles with these things as much as I do. So many of these things that I put down to just mum brain, having lots of children, could really be explained by ADD, ADHD. Okay, so we're going to find the original form on here. Like I said, this is really impromptu and I'm not prepared at all. Okay, so I've got on my iPad down here the form that I originally filled in. I just thought I'd go through the questions that they ask in the initial screening that made the GP think, oh yes, this woman probably needs an assessment, and made me realise, all of this kind of lines up. So how often do you have trouble wrapping up final details of a project or a task that requires organisation? And they ask you to answer never, rarely, sometimes, often, or very often. And you can see if I ticked very often for almost everything. I really struggle with the attention to detail stuff. So the exciting, getting a project done, all that kind of, the creative bit, I kind of thrive on. But the tiny little details, typos and things, I really struggle to see my own typos. I really, really struggle with. How often do you have difficulty getting things in order when you have tasks that require organisation? Now, a lot of these I answered, I really struggle with that, which is why I put this in place. So a lot of these struggles I already have strategies for. I didn't realise they may be ADD, ADHD related. But for example, I've got that clipboard system because I sit down at my desk and I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? So I've got a clipboard for each of the videos I'm supposed to be doing because some of them I might be editing now, but I filmed months ago. Some of them I need to film today and edit today. It's all trying to get the order in my head is a bit like spaghetti. So I have this clipboard system and they're up in an order, and without that I just sit down and I waste a lot of time wondering what I should be doing. So when you have a task that requires a lot of thought, how often do you avoid or delay getting started? So much. Does anyone remember how long it took me to get started with designing my planners? Because I found that really overwhelming. Where do I design it? How do I begin? Which software am I going to use? How am I going to, the process I had to set up of how to sell them and how to make the printers talk to the shop, to talk to all that, I found so overwhelming. I figured it out eventually, but even getting started on that, I procrastinated for so long. How often do you fidget or squirm with your hands or feet when you have to sit down for a long time? I wouldn't... this one's a difficult one. I think while I'm watching TV, I find it really difficult to just sit and watch if I'm not also eating or having a glass of wine or scrolling on my phone. So from that point of view, I find it difficult to just sit and do one thing. And I find it really difficult to just concentrate on, say, yoga, where you're supposed to be really mindful or clear your mind and all this business. That I find really, really, really difficult. But then I wouldn't say I'm hyperactive. So I don't know. That's one for the experts to look at, I guess. How often do you make careless mistakes when you have to work on a difficult project? If you think of typos, my spelling's not dreadful. My typing's pretty bad. And then noticing those typos, really bad. Really, really bad. I really, really struggle with that. How often do you have difficulty keeping your attention when you're doing boring or repetitive work? All the time. How often do you find difficulty concentrating on what people say to you even when they're speaking to you directly? I really do. I find myself zoning out sometimes. And I think, oh my goodness, I'm not paying attention. Okay, pay attention. And then you're like, oh, actually, I'm not listening to what they're saying. I'm just thinking, pay attention. So yeah, that's the thing. How often are you distracted by activity or noise around you? Yeah, quite easily. If I'm doing boring, repetitive tasks, I do have something on, like music or whatever, to keep me company because I'm bored. But when I'm doing editing, things like that, I really find it very easy to be distracted. Like years ago when I worked in a communal office with another probably 30 or 40 people in one really big room, I found it so hard to concentrate, like so hard. So I actually do much better working on my own from home than I did in that office environment. How often do you leave your seat in meetings or situations where you're expected to remain seated? That's not a massive struggle. How often do you feel restless or fidgety? Again, I don't feel like I just can never sit still. But there are times that I find it, I do find it very difficult to rest then. That I do find it very difficult to do. Which brings me on to the next one. How often do you find difficulty in unwinding or relaxing when you have time to yourself? I don't know how to do that. I really, really struggle with that. How often do you find yourself talking too much when social situations? I always worry that I do that. I do. When you're in a conversation, how often do you find yourself finishing a sentence with people talking before they finish themselves? Yeah, I do that. That's really embarrassing. And then I'm like, why did I just do that? That was so rude. But I do that. How often do you find difficulty waiting for your turn in situations where turn taking is required? Yes, I think I worry, certainly in like meeting situations where I'd have like an idea or something. I'm worried if I don't say it now, it'll leave my head. And then I'm like, okay, don't leave your head. If you like, don't interrupt. But then I'm not listening to what the person's saying because I'm thinking don't interrupt and don't forget the thing you're supposed to say, and then I lose place in the conversation. So how often do you interrupt others when they're busy? Yeah, I do that too. So that was a pretty good indication that I need an assessment. The main reasons I wanted the assessment, I guess the same as the children really. It's just good to know what you're dealing with. It's good to know how your brain works, because that way you know which strategies to put in place. You know when to be kind to yourself, you know when to, push yourself. I don't know. It's just, I feel like the more we know about our brains, the better we can be productive, take care of ourselves, do all the things. The better we can avoid pitfalls, the better we can manage our struggles and challenges. And I guess the other reason is that if the children ever say to me, well, why did you bother getting me assessed? Then I can say, like, it's no big deal. I went through the assessment too, and either nothing came of it and I'm also neurodivergent. But just like, I don't know, just destigmatize, I guess, neurodivergence and the possibility of neurodivergence. And so I guess you're gonna have to watch this space. Do I have ADHD? Do I not have ADHD? Is it ADD? Will I ever learn the difference? I'm really not as well read up on ADD, ADHD as I am with autism, obviously, because I've done a lot of research into that to learn about my children. Just kind of diving into the whole ADD/ADHD. I think the H is just the hyperactivity bit. So my money for me is probably on ADD, not ADHD, because I wouldn't say I've got ants in my pants and I can't sit still. Having said that, I talk with my hands all the time, which interestingly is something that in the children's autism assessment was point out that children do not talk with their hands. So maybe that's a big difference. I don't know. How do I feel about it? Well, it's not going to change anything at all other than me having a better understanding of me and therefore how I can be more productive, get more done while being less stressed, and therefore have more time to enjoy life and be with my children and be a more present parent. I guess that's been what I've been striving for this whole time since I started my channel, and indeed since becoming a mother. Life that feels like it's a lot to juggle, and I don't think that's necessarily an ADD ADHD thing. I think that mum life is busy and it is chaotic and a lot is expected of us, but I also think there are probably a lot of women who have undiagnosed neurodivergence, because ultimately we think of ADD ADHD as busy and naughty little boys, and in girls, by all accounts, it's more to do with being withdrawn, being quiet. School reports saying things like, oh, would do so well if she could only knuckle down and concentrate. That was very much me. If she'd only apply herself. Yeah, like I did okay in school. More luck than judgment. Imagine how well I could have done if I'd actually been made to apply myself. Whether I was made to or not, that's a whole other conversation. But I know I did not concentrate and fulfill my full potential then. So you're gonna have to watch this space. I will go to this appointment. I don't know if this appointment is the actual assessment, is like a preamble to the assessment. I don't know if it's like autism for the children where it's multiple different assessments or just a chat and then that's it. I don't know if it's structured, semi-structured. I got no idea what to expect. If you've been through it, please do let me know, because I'd love to know what to expect. And if you haven't, keep watching, and I'll I guess you'll have to subscribe to the channel and just keep an eye out, because that video will be coming out. I'll just share what happens, because that would be helpful to me right now, I guess, if I could already see what future me's had to go through and knew what to expect. So that's that really. As soon as that video is live, I will link it and you can see what goes on and find out if I have ADHD or ADD or none of the above. Thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful or interesting or enlightening or something. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do those YouTubey things. Check out early release videos on my Patreon. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.